Protect them who holds in his heart the scripture text and body of the sins all things as standing shines those as the sun unclouded by the clouds of traces of angels. The teachers insist arising all creatures caught in the presence of Jesus by this. Yours is running by the proclamation of the Dharma rise. Suffering wherever it describes the fear, very away the darkness of all ignorance. I am treated on my nutrition, spiritual body is adorned with 112 marks of the who has completed 10 stages achieving the highest perfection of Bodhisattva, who has been pure from living. O man, Geshe, O loving one, with the brilliance of your wisdom, illuminate the darkness of placing my life. Enlighten my some sound and insight into the text that explain them.
Sanji Chodan Soki Chonamla Chanchu Badu Dami Kapsuchi Dagi Chushi Gibe Sonan Drola Venture Sanji Jogashu Sanji Chodan Soki Chonamla Chanchu Badu Dami Kapsuchi Dagi Chushi Gibe Sonan Drola Venture Sanji Jogashu Sanji Chodan Soki Chonamla Chanchu Badu Dami Kapsuchi Dagi Chushi Gibe Sonan Drola Venture Sanji Jogashu Kanki Tuzi Nizonde Dawa Tamji Pambiche Dami Chun Tunji Tadum Keva Changse Lo Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everyone.
Rama Sangye Chode Shin Rama Gelu Cheers, Chuki.
Manzu Chadi Kalakasana Chakaki Tomatia Nanzu 방금 전에 납시장이 안 때문에 사전에 또 주의게 안 남을 기위스는야 소수 농주에야 그 요가치고 그거를 안 되니 소수 농주에 부딪히고서
whatever food we eat or whatever thing we drink, first off, we offer our enjoyments to Buddha Shakyamuni as the principal teacher, and then to all of our spiritual teachers, the virtuous friends. Whatever we enjoy, we first of all make such offerings, and then we enjoy it ourselves.
당한 가지 참들이 가지 참들이다 때문에 편념에 봤어요. 먼저 담배지 나눠야지. 먼저 삼려야. 아직 가득 용약이 조직이 소소하게 떨어다니는 정말로 안 될래야지. 쇼직 아니 가위 소리대와 양치 소소하게 내려다니는 정말로 될 쇼직 마가와 소리대. 지금 가득 쇼치면 쇼래야지. 아니 견자직디 아니 때문에 참되네 내거로스 디 가둑 초슈체를 내가서 디 가둑 초디 안 딜레 고야스키가 말스 텔레야 펜누스키가 말스 상우야고 당시와는 디케바스키가 말스 라 주주메제나노에 펜을 줘 말스 아니 하던도 자치 기원 기원이야 킬링 인진 대내장 아니 펜누이가 말스 케바키가 말스
So we're going to pick up from the point that we left off yesterday. So in looking at the 8th chapter from Shantideva's Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life, we're going to pick up from verse 21. There is neither benefit nor harm in praise and belittling. It is part of the section that explains the object's fall, the objects of attachment, as a way of abandoning attachment to gaining honor. So this verse relates to the way that we react to praise or blame, to praise and criticism. Our mind is greatly affected by that. We can see that often when we are being praised, the mind becomes joyous. When we are being blamed for something or criticized for something, our mind reacts with being dismayed. And the mind goes through those different swings of joy and being unhappy, joy and being deflated. And we can see how our reaction to being praised or to being blamed is part of those swings of the mind. So here Shantideva says that one shouldn't react to praise or blame in that way. It doesn't harm you nor benefit you in this life. And even more so when we think about it in terms of past and future lives. If you accept the existence of past and future life, then praise and blame do not benefit you, nor do they harm you to a great extent. And therefore, Shantideva says here that there is no point in the mind being so reactive to praise and blame.
It is a bit Mizendinang that loves a Yashu Chagos at this rock. Nanzu Mizenanola and it so shuki, so ongi, so on the waters, that so on the drone Zambala, Kaduna, and it's empty 2 years doing same 2 years. Did Levina and Kaduna Kangan Ted, Magiba young dead, young yoga deep, Geshe Gatamaris, San John do son the village. And the Nambu San Dandan. Deduki came so deep, Pig Gani Toxum Sira, and it chick down, and it Benjo Longe, Tindichi Chilaya, and it rally devil, so Tindichi Tony, drone Zambala, and it chick Benjo da Longe to Sugi, Pig Gurdore, and it chick Susu Gasa down, Yen Jigi, Pig Tachi. Kejigi, you had the tone, Zambala, and a ranching, and a sort of le, and a samba might give a young dead. The young of a done, not young to us,
This is one of the best advice that we can get for life, in that throughout the life we follow our emotions. We come under the influence of our emotions and we react to that in such a strong way that the mind becomes disturbed. We face difficulties and states of unhappiness because the mind reacts so strongly to the different emotions that run through our mind. So the Buddha, the Bhagavan, have pointed it out to us. It says that when we look at the things that we value, that appreciate at this point in time, so it might be the things that we like, those things that are close to our heart, those things that assist us, people or otherwise other things, we react to them with a certain emotive state of mind, but they're subject to change. They change from moment to moment. And often once we recognize that they have changed, our mind reacts to those changes with unhappiness. Strong emotions arise and we react to those situations with unhappiness. And here, as it is pointed out, there's no point in following those states of mind.
And di your drone di and same good social travel di Malaya, same good social travel Malaya, and it's same di ranching gi and trailer pouching kanji and there to get di yobaina and the ranching give you it. Rock, so the papa we want it. And the Mazino give go give so deep and same then you go. Di Sanjita those who
are close to our heart, close friends, relatives, the possessions that we have, the wealth that we have, the money that we have, all of them are subject to change. And therefore, once we not only introduce the notion of change to our mind, but once our mind understands that this is the nature of change, it tends to stop reacting so strongly to those changes. And as such, the mind becomes more balanced, more relaxed, more at ease. So it does affect the happiness that we enjoy in this life, the happiness and well-being. And this is what we want. This is what we need. We need to engender a state of mind that is more at ease, more relaxed, more happy. And Shantideva points out the way that we react to, at least in this section, to praise and blame, and the futility in reacting in this way.
Tera tangi de ya shoot gipe and gawa gom wewach kimaros kansan meratangi yoras and meratangi chomana be rikchik pe and sem shim and magiva chediachi yunguras did the chegoyamas can tera tangi yungures ro tichi di kanji and di nigi he chokes manova semdi any losurko netuana. So
therefore, in verse 21, it says, if there's someone who derides me, what is there for me to be happy about it being praised? And if there's another who praises me, what is there for me to be unhappy about it being derided? So here Shantideva points out that if someone is deriding you, criticizing you, and so forth, there would also be someone that is praising you. So what's the point in being so upset about someone deriding you? And Similarly, if someone is praising you, also could be that another person would deride you. So what's the point in being so overjoyed in being praised? What Shantideva is pointing out here is the need to develop a mind that is not greatly affected by praise or criticism, to create a mind that is impartial, that is not biased, a mind that is more balanced, a mind that is more at ease.
아니 펜도 쉬어서래서 먼저 집이 내가 갑자기야 아니 수수비 내가 내야지 삼반남다 돈 내기야 봐이나 아니 제발 랑기 쳐도 내기야 봐이나 아니 다가랑 미유 다가랑키 아니 네 갑자기야지 미기지 아니 견저야다 메라타야다 직 녀다세야 같이 내봐이나야 디기 아니 수수비 미유를 소주 내가 지야 될이야. 고진 지금도 상대도 소주 샘을야지. 마기바 용에도 상도 까투야지. 자, 어디지 연구였어요.
Chiba lakasa, chiba sana chiba.
지금 촉바로.
Sopa, okay, chiba. So this is a good advice that Shantideva gives us here in terms of not allowing the mind to be that affected by praise or by criticism, particularly when you're doing some form of public service or work for the public. You might be working for a certain community, a certain organization, a certain group, and so forth. And as such, we always face situations in which one person might be criticizing us, where another person might be supportive and praising us. So since this is the nature of working, doing community service or public service, taking up type of general or public role, then what's the point in being reactive to those situations in which your mind is made so unhappy? Gives you no benefit, just creates mental unhappiness. So Shantideva says here that it's better not to be that reactive to that. Yeah. I have like a scratch here and it said that kind of you punched me.
Okay.
And Geshe said it seems that you kicked me. Yeah.
Must have been down very low.
Yeah.
With maybe I could use this.
Yeah, with a stick. Kasan na go di dila dabs. Sorry? Yeah, kind of. I had a silly moment yesterday. I had a notebook in front of my computer and I was looking for it everywhere. I didn't see it just in front of me. So I kind of was looking left and right and up and down. And then I just smashed my head on the corner. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes when you're enraged, it might be that you even see kind of someone on telly that you dislike, and being enraged, you might even punch your telly. Anyway, didn't punch my computer, it punched me.
Lavje dosu semle yoba ina gacha gyatamba an chik sozole ya karso ta chik roba da masonna pa da masonna pi baba jing zo di ani sem to lavje to yungu da sra mi shamba ji ji pi namgyu ya bu ten ya le jewa chi ya tera tan ya le jewa chi ya tin ji ji ton lega chi go chuna lega chi kal kha bu shuro sra an ngoyen ne sozu pi hemba khar tan ya ba 제발 하나야지 팬비체도 내가 지기어봐나 가드이나 아니 소심 제트야지 되면은 소수의 미지 개변체도 아니 제발이야 준 내가 지기어봐나 가드이는 요다 연구했어 라 가드이는 요다 가서 소수 되는데 마주디 아니 참으로 콘도 사기여리 아니 요다 내고라서 아니 나 이 차도 기기여리 아니 지 공도 사고 리용도 때마인 법이 변한다 지 만주다 추종될 내대한자 추종 디랑을 지 폐미치 콘성당 저거이나 안 라비전도 속이 쇼직 편도 있는 스트레스
So this advice that Shantideva offers here is an excellent advice for us. 100% guarantee that it is a beneficial advice in terms of when we think of how we use that advice, and we use that in a way that it is a friend, it is a friendly advice. It is something that we can draw upon in order to develop a certain determination or courage when we take up a course of action. So being able to draw that sense of courage and determination is based upon such good advice. And particularly when we think of how we engage with others in the different relationships we have in our community, either in this center or when you're doing a public service, public work, community work, and so forth, it's really hard to meet everyone's expectations. This is the nature of doing work with the public or work in a community. Someone might praise you, or someone might deride you or criticize you because they have certain expectations, and the expectations are either met or not met. So when they're praising you or when they're blaming you or deriding you, it is because they have certain wishes, expectations, and so forth. So doing that kind of job or work is really hard, because it's not that things will always work perfectly for you. It's rather that you will experience difficulties and problems all the time. So if then you try to make everyone happy in doing a certain public work, community work, and so forth, it'd be so hard. You might then find that some cause problems because they're jealous or because they're angry and so forth. And this is the way that we sometimes speak about issues or problems that we face when we try to do a certain public service, right? So we say that, well, it's hard doing that because the person disliked me, or they're becoming angry at me, or because they're jealous and so forth. So it's important that in our mind, when we work in a certain community, like for example here, that we do not allow our mind to be so affected by praise, blame, and so forth. Certainly, if you draw from this advice, you will find it helpful in terms of preventing your mind from being agitated or being made unhappy when such things occur.
It is that the one the law saying, Demela Chadam Merite, Chivarita Tanjitara, Merite, Kona, Dala, Nueva Shayana, Gashiki Morte, Da Kawachishiyas, Ti Gawala Kechi, Dala Teva Shayana, Kajiki Neva, Magawa Chachishi. They make it torment and Mingiri, tell a chava the down Mingiros.
Let's look at the commentary to verse 21. It is unsuitable to have attachment and anger for praise and criticism. What does one have to be happy about when one is praised directly, if one is secretly criticized by someone else, as there is interference to that happiness? What does one have to be unhappy about if one is criticized when there is someone by whom one is praised? As one does not become high or low through praise or criticism, one should abandon attachment and hate towards them.
And Suzu di Yardojas Kiomarosti, Suzu Ranshin Karimba Titolaya, Deor Mado, Magic Karan Donate Mountain, Kanayabu Shoes, Ris Lavni, Kanayar Dromaros, and Kanan Dugja Shuris Lavana, Kanan Kaimba Titola, David Mado, and Dugja Res Lavin, Kanan Dugja Chabres, Kiomaros, Kanan Chip, Sogun Chimushuris Lavana, Can be done Kondu Yang Ton Drogana. Can Zogum Chil Romudas, and can be Kondu Savres Lavana. Can I mean a Kondu Savana? Kondu Savres Kazu Lavana, can I get a Kondu to Dujas Kiomaras? It's a Telia Chadan Chimugova, Daniel Shayadi, Koran Pigi. So Nizu the Tombas, Tele Kaki, and Penodromaris.
what Shantideva and the commentary point out here is true, in the sense that when someone praises you, it doesn't change who you are. It's not that praise all of a sudden makes you more elevated. It doesn't, praise in itself does not improve you. It doesn't change your nature. And similarly, if someone is criticizing you, saying that you're an evil person, it doesn't make you become an evil person, right? So just being blamed for something doesn't really change who you are. So when we think of certain things that are said about us, like for example, if someone might point out that you're a patient person, just pointing it out to you doesn't make you patient. Or if someone is saying that you're such an angry person, if you're not getting angry, saying that you're angry doesn't really make you angry, right? It doesn't change who you are. So here Shantideva says that it's much better to respond with an equanimous mind rather than responding to those situations with anger, attachment, and so forth. Remain with a sense of equanimity.
아니 다시 한번 눈징이 예미라이 눈징이 예미 다또 눈징세야디 그게 즉 차단 처리 제치니 아니 니년다 즉니그 촉데슬라진 쇼직이 차신체다 양이 다레스 즉 라체 그 당쇼 체대 디에 디라야 아니 경 아니 농축지마도 텔이야 아니 소소래야 캡산라야지 싸우니요 말이지 예미 코나레스로.
Now, the next point in this chapter is looking at the disadvantages of bustle. So we spoke about the hustle and bustle of the world. So in pointing out those disadvantages, here the main point is the disadvantages of anger and attachment. In that we have a sense of attachment to those who are close to us, to our friends. We have a sense of aversion to those that we dislike, those that we see as enemies. And as it is pointed out in this section, this attitude that holds others with a sense of anger and attachment towards those who are our enemies or those who are close to our heart is a disadvantageous attitude. It is a mistaken attitude. It doesn't give us any benefit at all. It is solely mistaken.
제바도 트럭가비 뒤에 눈질을 차가 문자 왔다. 텔레시신 거고. 아무튼 제바도 트럭가비서야지. 당한서 진짜 니님 드스니 디쇼지 기피 아니 지금 무슨 나눠야 아니 펜을 쇼지 여바지 문제지. 펜비다 아니 시도 쇼지래 문제지. 텔레야 차지. 아니 딘디지 코리아가 쳇. 아니 니 소소래야지. 아니 가서다 니니지 인지베 아니 용약이 쳐도 아니 미 무엇소양지 열었어. 내가 지금 미 무엇소야디 사원님 걔랑 제대로 말했어. 딜레 그 따님 시하잖아. 이야기를 했어요. 이래 봐서.
There are 2 points in the section that points out the disadvantages of bustle, as it is difficult to keep company with the childlike people. So with childlike people, do not be attached to their preoccupations and diversions, and then stating the proof for that. So it is difficult to keep keep company with childlike people in the sense that we might try to get others to be close to our heart, to be our friends, and so forth. We might put an effort into that and try to make all of them happy, but it is not possible to make all of them happy. And given the nature of those childlike people, even though you might try to do it, at the end you won't be able to do it to the degree that you would like to. In that vein, verse 22 says, even the victor, the Buddha, is unable to please the beings of various inclinations. then what need to mention about a negative person such as I? Therefore, I should give up worldly thoughts.
And bet some you never do Janjan Inza, and in Anzodoji, and it's Tamji Guyak, Tamji Lola Paviagi, and in Legacy Chegochona, Kalaka Shujas. Pena Javasaka Tobagi, Doji come the Meva, Tamji Kendingi, Kongi Jang, and Simjan Tamji Guyagi, Zebaj Zetu Mena, and in Dandangamba, and in Natawishiki. And it's Simjan Tamji Goya Legach Kachi to this. Tinza Pigi, Energy Jan Ni Kyonyagi, Chadangi, Samlodi, Karan Madan Yakshuris, Karan Samba third doors.
Here, Shantideva points out that sentient beings have different inclinations. So Geshe said that, like, for example, with respect to himself, since the dispositions of others, the mentalities and so forth are inconceivable in a sense that some of them are beyond the realm of his thoughts, then it's not possible to please everyone. It's not possible for him, but even more so when you look at the life story of the Buddha, you can see that even the Buddha had people that he wasn't able to please or wasn't able to draw. So then when we look at the effects that when we look at the efforts that we put into trying to subdue our enemies and to draw or attract those who are close to our heart, here Shantideva says that given that you're not going to be able to please everyone, wouldn't it be better to just stay with a balanced and relaxed state of mind?
Dinza Bena Sosodojan by now, and Junju that and Junju Annie Himani Tagore Pandai Milashigores do show to Junju Jean Buzo Jeon Dige Annie G. Kesa Zodi and it's also called Deonia, called Neonia, and it's just so clean Manology, Pended Druya, Chagindi, and this keep do Samsung Rose. And pay Yungus, London, that's a social dinner, David in the year. And so the social legacy, Sanji Jambalaya, this temple, Chandel Shutuna Samsung. The Sunjing, the Gilead, this can talk in the Samsung tea, and some of the non the words, consider Missy Coronaya, and she's Sanji Chu, Lajan Tom, Jamba Insa, this some word, the cheating. And so the written Dechini, me one Janja song go Chona, and Tandari Javijan among Dandam, which is said, Yoya Koreomaris. It's a social never come over the Sanji Tembalia, Shandam Shear, Susulaya, Lunga Yusun, never come over tea, and Chick-Sinjing, Digilia Pimbi, never come over tea, Denchini, and Taran Tom Legachin, Jovaina. Yakshu direshas, Yakshu din tungudus, the resisana, din tungudus.
We've looked at this text, Shantideva's Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life, a few times. So Geshe had the opportunity to draw from this text a few times in few teachings here at the center. So it contains those advice, those instructions that are applicable and beneficial. They provide others with happiness or bliss wherever you are, whatever situation you are. You can use that in order to bring about a greater degree of happiness and benefit to those around you. Like, for example, here, when we think of people here in our community, in this center, we can think of engaging with this text. Shantideva's Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life, and thinking, may I be able to be of benefit, at least to the people around me here? May I be able to train my mind in the Buddha Dhamma so that I'll be able at least to affect those around me. Like, for example, in this community, to give others some benefit with happiness and bliss and so forth. And yet, if we think that I want to please everyone, I want to make sure that everyone is happy with me, it's not going to happen. it's not going to happen for us. And even we can think of how even the Buddha was not able to do it when we look at the life stories of the Buddha. So we still continue with our motivation to try to be as benefit as much as we can, at least to the people here around us, to provide others with benefits, to be useful to others, but still in keeping in mind that we're not going to be able to please everyone.
그래서 당한도 미인자 소소카 대와 대요바나 데서 델이야 데서 디 민콜이야지 펜토투야 소소를 니고 요바디 디 톨에 된 거야지 그는 나란로나 기치신 동교였어가 소소비기 아니 샤르데 안치 성방서디 넘초조로지야 성방 대바이나 디 니바디냐고 말아 소소 니바디냐고 말아 소소 니바 가와냐서 델이야 니버든 바이노 소소 니버든 투게치 나 딜리도 소고 딜리 나 추조 딜 데비릴이야 지 기르는 가두스 데 투게네 하고요 말고 아니 처음 따왔으니자 이네 데비릴이야 델이야 아니 지 감투치도 그 편도 치고 아sam성기 삼로디 쇼요레스 딘자 디 케치니 안 디 나노라야 추조 디게 안 체프 양송라야 펜비게 레베칭이 미드 레원 샘팅이 피길이야 굳이 용해지다 가부 용해지 용도 안 데려야 거기 칭이 레원디 샘팅 아카 인디지다 마치 버치나 상성도 마성 버치나 상성 소디 페슈치 모이스라 페슈치 모이스.
And this is something that is applicable to all of us as human beings in whatever we are, wherever we stay, wherever we live. We can think, may I be able to be of benefit to others? May I be able to be useful to others? Rather than thinking of those who are really far away from us, like, for example, if you're in the East thinking, I really want to be of benefit to those in the West, but actually not taking care of the people around you, it's not really helpful. Also, it's not really effective. So you need to, first of all, begin with those who are around you, to think, may I at least be able to benefit those who I come in contact with, those who are close to me, rather than thinking of those that you're very far from. So in this way, we think of being able to be of use to others, and particularly Geshe says that in thinking of our current situation, like for example, in this situation, not knowing how long will we be able to stay here or to remain alive in this life. After all, we're all subject to death and impermanence. So long as you're here, so long as you stay in a particular place, you need to think, may I be able to be of benefit at least to those who are around, to provide them with short-term benefit, intermediate-term benefit, and long-term benefit. So this is quite a good advice to take on. And Geshe says that, this is the way that he's been trying to live his life wherever he is. And sometimes when he sees that some adverse conditions come up to making that happen, the only thing that he can say is, alas, right? It is really unfortunate that situations like that happen. May they not occur.
düğünü tergovan zigden geçince sonbayınca imajının ansama tergoya dedik ngoyene de çavanza ti ni model ya 직 아니 가वे 나는 로트야지 총바이나 당한저 케 야시 디르와스라 당한저 니 텐이 니 모델야지 배샤 마음 쇼지 케 요바니 디기 소소 메셀레 핑기요 니고요 자원이 싱마르스 예와 치마는 야차갸담 디기 핑마르스 라 당한저 두 데데디 추조델야 오늘 단이 샘디니 샤자요 위지요 무부다 든지 용지 레가치니 아마 로드를 담발라 로판가니 로드를 든지 마음 통송 배 마세바 지 미글에 치마셔야도 딘디 용도도 딘디 땅이 계시셔서디 사실 디마도 매완전 이 참도 시에셔도 있어라 딘디 싸우님 책임을 있어라 싸우님 아니 미야고 미 박sam지 레온디 난 사미기 약결 제바나 상기 템발리는 간 아니 자와치켜도 senching dede yelon dig miselina 먼저 편도치 두고도 이 마치바는 빼디 아니 지금 착도다 젠sem다 딘디짱짱기 그게 쭉 되바나 숙하네 편도메디 탐 지금 위 야부도서 샘바 상부도서 로팜 땅에 차바이나 디 끼어가 멈춰 먹는데야 나는 그 소스토가 바로 왔어 근데 싸우는 책임을
So at least Geshe says that for him himself, when he thinks of living here day after day, living in this place, in this Buddhist center, when he thinks of at least being able to be of benefit to those around us here, it brings some joy to one's mind. And also keeping in mind that one day we will depart from this life and continue to our next life. This is the nature of our life. This is the nature of the world, that death and impermanence will catch up with us one day, and we will depart from this life and proceed to the next. So then in thinking, first of all, of wanting to be of benefit to others, those around us, for as long as we live until we depart from this life, is one thing that we can draw joy from. But also in thinking of other things that we invest our time in. So you might accumulate money or possessions, whether they will be helpful or detrimental to you in this life, there is no certainty. It could be they could be helpful, but also they could cause some damage. One thing that it is certain is that whatever money or possessions you accumulate in this life, you'll not be able to take them with you to next lifetime. All of them will be left behind. So in that sense, there'll be no benefit from them in your future lifetime. But what could be of use is the type of benefit that you give to others. So you think, so long as you're alive, may I be able to be of benefit to others? May I be able to be of benefit to those who are around me? And also to make sure that we do not succumb to those states in which jealousy arises or competitiveness arises, which disturb the mind, right? So those states of mind make the mind confused and they're not helpful. So at least Geshe says that not knowing, we have no idea how long we're going to stay here. He doesn't know how long he's going to stay here in this life or this center, but at least for as long as that is still the case, may we be able to be of benefit to those around us.
Manam manam kundutan shoging I need some young not was it indigenous let to give me kind is 11 not indigenous and drogora some sandwich. Tangam mountain not David in the yachi and Suzuki sorry Susu desert layer 10 cantos those shape was something some of the shoe shadows manam decation tongue reduces the tongue of the thing did it source of thing on some of the chico young eras.
As it happened, Geshe had a dream last night, and he dreamt that some of his acquaintances at Sera Monastery, where he came from in India, have passed away. So, maybe 4 or 5 of those elderly teachers passed away. So he woke up in the morning and he thought to himself, well, that will happen to me one day as well. I will also pass away. So at least for as long as I'm here, may I be able to be of benefit to others.
Lord Trupture down is doing to there's some Janya on someone draws at it. But you mentioned that not drove us, not some dryers that are. It's a so David Hilia, Shush, which gives me Gurum Damages, David Hilia, Susu Luna in some 그 편도 제 투사질이야 편도 제거에 디 쉬우지게 계시고 난 딜리로 솔브스라
So Geshe thought of, in his dream, is so Gen Punsok, right? So his name is Geshe's name is Tsultrim. So he saw another teacher from Sera Monastery who also was known by the name Punsok, who passed away. So Geshe thought that, well, Gen Punsok passed away, and one day it would be Gen Punsok Tsultrim have passed away. So Gen Punsok and Gen Jampa and Gen Ngawan Delek and Lobsang Tenzin, all of them have passed away, and they were in the 60s, 70s. None of them have reached the age of 80. So Geshe said that looking at his age, it's going to come to pass quite soon. It doesn't have many years to live when you think of the passage of time. So then, at least for the time that he does have left in this life, may he be able to be of benefit to others with actions of body, speech, and mind. When may we be able to be of benefit to others? This is the type of motivation that is good to develop.
그래서 내가 지금 상바탕세에 그게 잔들 인종체 차당 톤 잔들 인종체에 상로디 잠샤고 그랬어. 그런 잠샤에 그 약속이 다다레스. 이 잠샤는 계란기 비게 안직 삼바상보 안직 펜디 삼바디 준바이노 계란이 비준 투야다 이 콤파탕도 네바 여바 다다레스로 다다 남지 마시바이나 몽발지 지기 슬라바이나 자원이니 아니 차마도 완자 다다는 상당히 베키신 거랬어. 그 순간에다 대변직들 상바탕세
When it says at the end of verse 22, therefore I should give up worldly thoughts that entertain thoughts about those that you dislike, enemies, harm, and so forth. It's better to relinquish the thoughts from your mind, because it is much more beneficial to develop a sense of concern for others, to increase our affection, the altruistic intention with respect to others.
제는 심지어 매번 하죠 공고문이 틀린 하죠기 변제가 자위견 뭐거나 삼번매시비 다다비 님비 공문이가 해주고 대변은 직된 당 trouble 삼바당 사고스.
The commentary says, one cannot fulfill the various wishes of sentient beings. If even the conquerors cannot fulfill the wishes with their diverse enlightened activities, then what need is there to mention someone inferior like oneself who does not know their thoughts? Therefore, give up the thought of associating with worldly people.
그러다 심진 예범했다. 내려면 예범장을 민니주 rangian toga tadaki gawachidel kiwanjus.
Now this section continues with verse 23 that reads, they deride sentient beings who have no possessions, and they say bad things about those who do. How will they, who are by nature difficult to get along with, produce happiness?
Terda bigi jigdengi ani chadangi shawan chudingi jigdengi samlo dang shadang khanda jiyor sebaina ndijires bigi jig jawachi tombochi ani chisem chinjile baina o tape ka shambas tangchi telaya jesu yaranchia ani ka shani pe anti chibi lega chiundi korang mingi chedu chingire tang chedu chingire ser zondo ani merata dikugi konsa sonam da tindi jimba di ya ani kuzi machi bachi yang chita manji bachi da baina tape kugi pe lenya ba ser da kanchi ani yasa tsawin samtam kugi duksa janjan ni samtam dingi ani chiso di kandra chini mandu dawji ki ani rugru chigo goa chigo chetu mares 텔 소소소 간 리버 칸요 된지 소소소 내가 내가 약속 되는데 이래서라
What Shantideva points out here is the type of attitude that we have in the world. So attachment to some and anger towards others. So we develop those attitudes in certain situations. When someone, for example, experiences success, when they get success in whatever they do, they become wealthy, they gain a benefit, they gain possessions and so forth. We sometimes praise them in order to get a personal benefit, or we started criticizing, saying that, well, they got that because they were dishonest, or they got it because they're seeking reputation and notoriety or fame and so forth. And similarly, when someone is someone that we dislike is experiencing a negative situation, then we say that, well, this is because of their bad karma. This is because they've acted negatively before and now they're experiencing the results of their own actions. When someone is experiencing a positive situation, we cannot really think that that occurred or that came to pass on account of the merit that they've had before. We feel obliged to criticize them for one reason or another. So altogether, it seems that it's hard for us to think positively of others. Rather than thinking about them in a positive way, we tend to entertain negative thoughts. And as such, it's difficult to really develop cohesiveness in the community or society around us. So here Shantideva says here that it's better not to go along with those type of tendencies. It's better just to leave them.
내가 순전 넘는 통예가 매가고 손은 마인다 시 참니 차시 매가 녀버잖아 녹수 줘보시 매녀버 줘도 대다기 간신 쳤다와 이거 되나 제발 대다기 나라가와 저들기 원그 문규비 비기 같이 저거 미사세고 아니 차시 미자세 그러 아니 어디래도 미자오스
The next paragraph in the commentary says, they criticize and put down those sentient beings that have not found gain, saying they have no merits. Those who have gain, they criticize, saying they practice wrong livelihood. As they are difficult to associate with, how can one be made happy by the childish? As one cannot, one should not associate.
the decision governance, concept Chebar and then never government mentions. So you begin the matter and Gava singing the Savanin and Kazus be Chana and it to your Karchevania and P. Frank the dangerous, Tim Mandrabaina and Savanin and Sinji Yata Mongolaya and the Pendo Chibi and Gagmaris never government join Cheva Gaya.
Verse 24 is pointing out the proof for stating that it is difficult to keep company with childlike people. Do not be attached to their preoccupations and diversions. Let's look at verse 24. It says, it has been said by the Tathagatas, never befriend the childish, because without the welfare, these childish ones will not be happy. So here it says, it has been said by the Tathagatas, never befriend the childish, because without their welfare, these childish ones will not be happy. So you might attempting to be of benefit to others, but still, if they don't accomplish what they seek, if they don't accomplish what they want, it's really difficult to make them happy.
The random something in the and gender down, chibi tundi, and kitchelia, kitumaras, the rock, random command some men, chibola temba, shana temba, kanji legal love chibu kandis chavania, and it made it goche 2 months, 2 months. Middle go at Kurang Tanda Mado, and Chibi Tanda Mare, any Shangi Tanda Mare, and Chug Tanda Mainza, and the countries in the Chetumadita, can give Metsedele, Kichi should be, and Chiva Samtaya, Gender Samtaya, Yawachimala Samtaya, Gender, the Chibi told the legacy to can give a region, and that the Druga, the Dirvasta, the D. Chip Goya, Gogin Fuching. Rounded Frank of chanting and Gani from the Zuretas. These are to do a charge in Chigiomaris, Pentomaris.
Here, Shantideva points out that it's difficult to make someone that is self-centered happy. So if they only think of themselves, if they only think of their own benefit or happiness, it's really difficult to then talk to them about actions that are beneficial to others or to act for their sake, because so long as their purpose is not met or is not achieved, they will still remain unhappy. So then when we think of the type of attitude that we want to develop, then rather than becoming self-centered in only pursuing our own welfare, we want to be of benefit to others. We want to be of benefit to our society or community. We want to be beneficial to the Dhamma. We want to be beneficial in terms of securing a succession of good rebirth in which we'll continue to develop that altruistic intention. If we remain self-centered, that will not come to pass.
Inza kanji ani kanji ini pi jandu ni jong se chardang pi lega di sao ni ni pentoya mewa timba di siu shu chardang de ngonda kanji shiwa nanjida man chibi lega chin chu injimi labja di yo baina an sozo le konro da mazuna gyabden da mazuna shu ya gu ra gyabden chesa manna waras manju le de chesa di ani sanji le chanju samba de and the Mushubana, the show to the Soba, Rock, and Shantideva Soba, and Yatunga Somalia, not the Geshe, to Zukalo Karmayo, Lavja Karjayova, Taranaya, Sam Penny, and so to come young Drovina, Legos and Negros, Rock.
Yes, I had gained some personal experience. Sometimes we're trying to point out to friends kind of the way of thinking, pointing out that it's pretty difficult to make someone that is self-centered happy. And often the response that Geshe got was a bit argumentative, like you don't really understand, you don't really know what the situation is. And Geshe said, well, if you still stay with a mind that is only thinking of your own welfare, if you only think of kind of how are you going to get the upper hand, if you don't think about it in general, how it can be of benefit to others, you're still going to have problems. And still the reply was that, often the reply is that, oh, you just don't understand, you don't get it, or you don't know, you don't see that. So if we still continue with an attitude of wishing to subdue our enemies and to get those who are close to our heart closer to us, it's like, to have friends on one side and to turn against others, for that long, we'll still continue to experience difficulties. So rather than doing that, we've decided that we are going to rely upon the Buddha Dhamma. We are relying upon the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas. We are relying upon the teachings of Shantideva and also the teachings of Jetsun Kappa. So if we study the teachings, if we're putting into practice their advice, what we need to get at is the development of an attitude that is not self-centered, but one that is oriented towards the benefit of others.
네, 이나 윤전 관계자는 제가 제대로야랑도 시행을 하고 있습니다. 매번 가면 중에 제가 수수께고 가야 저거는 세번처럼 시 이제 세번은 송소 나와드는 도 수수께고는 자우네 최대된 담하나요 이 매체시 세단 좋다 뭐버터번 제비는 세단
Looking at the commentary to this section, it says, those gone thus teach that as the childish are unhappy if their purpose is not fulfilled, which is more important to them than anything else, one should not associate and befriend them. In the Sutra of Moonlight Lamp, ordinary individuals do not have friends. Even if one says words endowed with Dharma, they do not believe and show anger and hate. These are the actions of the childish.
예, 산지 송디 수부슈도라 샘을 수부슈 이 같이 대저다 상상나 이 되게 동로 난 샘을 이 수부슈도라 아니 지금 이제도 가라는 얘기죠. 수수 때워가는 자원에 최단된 특당 하나야. 이 같이 아니 펜션 권이나 최단 되면서는 펜션 권이나 시스템 권이나 산지 때문에 이는 장치네 이 아니 지금 나가잖아요. 이시 지금도 이 차려야배 아니 샤당다 아니 되게 차도다 진짜 진로도 뒷배 소지티고 내랑하다 있었어.
Reading through the Sutra of Moonlight Lamp, at least in Tibetan, it's quite poignant. It's hard to, Geshe said that it's hard for him to know whether it is as sharp as, when you read it in English, whether it is as sharp as you read it in Tibetan. But it says ordinary individuals do not have friends, in the sense that even if you try to please them, you try to treat them with a sense of affection, with a sense of care, even if you try to benefit them, even if you try to teach them the Dhamma, sometimes they react with anger, with jealousy, with a sense of competitiveness and so forth. So ordinary individuals do not have friends from the point of view of it's really hard to please them. They do not believe what you say and they show anger and hate. These actions are the actions of the childish, in the sense that they behave in such way due to their own karma.
인지대 지내야 딱 80배 아니 되는 나라오지 버리냐 나라야 고시 가시 주스 나라 공부 가시 내도든가 공부 아니 그게 나나가 가든 공부 어딘지 공부 가 공부는 전에 붙다 봐도 쉬우지 강라버디 쉬우지 무슨 디기는 저도 토일에 공부 인미스는 지금 뭐냐 상황을 토일이야 가와지야지 딩한테 쇼지라서 미치기 셈이야 아니 가와기 야기 자와지 투야디 쇼랍체라도 단데다나 배 소수기고 가야디 상기비 투 말스 난도 커도 세대야기 딘디기 아니 차시지 난도 낸 투야디 배 마스베 야고라서 난도 지스비난 지야라서.
And still Geshe has a few troops that are working together with him, the troops of the garden, the troops of the Nalanda Master Garden. And they try as much as possible to follow Geshe's advice or ideas and to then make others happy. And if you are able to make some people happy, that's already incredible. Keeping in mind that even the Buddha was not able to make everyone happy, then if we are capable of making someone happy, that's already quite a great achievement.
렉된장 대다 최신문자 제규시 지병원이 귀신나 제바다다 때문에
And there's another statement from the Tsultrim which says, although one relates well with the childish for a long time, one can say that after they will become unfriendly and disagreeable, having understood the causes of the childish, the skilled do not rely on the childish.
The Sanji Song in the shoot pay and Channel Chamber on the assembly of Sufu, Musudajiki, and Sidun to Jeva, or yeah, something, and the details read us. Is on the same Shaboy, and Jujutum Chanzan Pay, and then our policy, we can that Chanzan Pay, Port Chair, never matters. Inaya, and it's Nice, the Jido Pay. Chanzan don't get you, and so the and you talk about Amman in your people, sometime. Yes, Yadam Susan was an only handle this.
These verses that we read are from the teaching of the Buddha, and as such, they're straightforward and also helpful. So we want to keep them in mind as much as we can. It's hard to memorize all of Shantideva's Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life. It is hard to fathom everything that you find in this text. But still, if you're able at least to retain a couple of points, a couple of verses, write them down, take them around with you, reflect upon the meaning of those words or verses, you'll find that things that you'll find a lot of good advice for life in those verses.
Shon Kasaka love Lojon Kasakan to Ancient Rumuchi show the details of Pindikanaya, Kashi show several Kashima water as a Kashi does show those coach and the big team kid or something. In the Pemamodos. It's super, it's not love shadows. It chance on have chance on kill Drogon and the young mother. These are two shooty. This is Amman Kindle, utility to Zudi, and to Zul Devine.
Captain Lama Rinpoche was here in 2018, and Geshe is spoken English. He taught in English, so Geshe didn't understand many of the things that Rinpoche was saying, but it was still pretty interested in the way that Lama Rinpoche was teaching. So he gave a public talk here in the evening, one day, right? So one evening. And he brought along a text, and he was opening the text. There were quite a lot of small paper slips that were attached to the text in different pages, like paper mark or what have you. They were of different colors. Some of them were yellow or white or pink and so forth. And Geshe was kind of pretty interested in the whole scene. So every so often, Lama Rinpoche pulled up one of those papers which contained an advice for mind training and was reading from it. And Geshe thought that actually it's a really useful way of doing it. Kind of you have those mind training advice at the tip of your finger. You're ready to pull them out when you need them. So Geshe was quite fascinated by that. And he thought that actually it's a good skill or method to use later on. If you find a certain advice, mind training advice to be useful, then just put it on paper and be ready to pull it out when you need it.
This is the Dangan to be so some of the Shimju to draw in and cut the Union social look in Kanji social Pentoya look in Kalina, which is on a denary, social trauma, which in denary, and then draw a denner kanji. Yunguyores, right? Dimajivana, Kati in a page, Rangi Shim, Pomiagi, Samlo Surajda, chagdo dan jensam de tindigan in jodevan kan do in a same true dead sembo magiva yung dead kanji o tintichi modo mevadi Geshe gadamare dosro penjur khaju siga vainya khadu in the and jensam so the ngamra so kanji ni in kivu maku yung dead same tom chigdosro this one dosro.
It's really useful to think of these points, to research into those texts of or advice of mind training in order to inform a mind and to make them useful to us. A mind expands, a mind improves when we think of this personal advice. So whether you find yourself in the company of others in society, or whether you find yourself completely alone, when you go somewhere, or when you stay in a certain place, you will always have things to work with in order to develop mental happiness and joy. So in that sense, they can always be useful. Whereas if you don't use this advice and you let your mind stay the way that it is, with seeking your own victory, even if it comes at the expense of others, if you still manage your affairs or your relationship with others with jealousy, with competitiveness, with pride, and so forth, your mind will still remain unhappy. So we want to use those instructions to make sure that our mind improves, that we get a personal advice from those instructions so that our mind is made happier.
Ani lu emba ani nga emba yi emba se love chogores ta lu emba tendi prigi muso mambu mesa ani chi tata sinsin mambu mesa ani chi kejur mambu mesa dimji chilaya ani lu neyati lu emba tensorendos ta tetsam ani nganzolia deji yon tugureslana dedem tugureslana kalakhago shuredos inayan le thambo wala yachi chadang ongi wala batuso manu yagi kheba shu yungores.
Now the next section in the text is teaching how to rely upon seclusion or as isolation. It speaks of the benefit of relying on isolation, and there are different types of isolation that you might cultivate. So there is physical isolation, verbal isolation, mental isolation. If you cultivate physical isolation, you might look at certain areas, different things that you can do in order to develop physical isolation. Like, for example, stay in a place where you're not surrounded by many people, or a place that is not busy with sensory overload. Kind of, there are not many things that are fighting for your attention. But if you just focus on this and you expect that to give you long-lasting happiness, it's quite hard. If you just isolate yourself from places which are busy, crowded, or that you have a lot of input to the senses and expect that to provide you with long-lasting happiness, it's going to be quite hard. But still, if you find that your mind is subject to cost levels of anger, attachment, and so forth, there is a benefit in maintaining some form of isolation in order to make sure, to begin with, that those cost manifestations of anger, attachment, and so forth do not arise.
So the go to one na empathy so teledos. Mazun not chesila on the peggy chick and a chair that can be gadgets in by nea. Shanley pendo you be gadget kitchen with Jimbania, a share much of solid. Theatre line in some sound construct. So not yet. And a June Tamatsu to not yet. Being and true Shinjoya, Shin the same on the poya. And she Suzu to Zutrola Tang, not so that the Zuka to one, Tanga, and but then Yashudi, din sares ra.
You can also rely upon verbal isolation. And mainly you can, for example, rely upon isolating yourself from the 4 non-virtues of speech. So lying, divisive speech, harsh speech, and meaningless chatter or idle chatter. That could be one effective way of maintaining verbal isolation. So not only we behave with a speech in a way that is harmful to others, we might involve, for example, with idle chatter in engendering a sense of divisiveness in our society or community, or speak in a way that others might find hurtful, or at the very least, we waste the time of others. So someone might think that to rely upon verbal isolation in which you avoid from meaningless chatter would mean that you also avoid speaking about the Dharma to others in a way that could be of benefit to others. It's not about avoiding any form of speech. It is of avoiding the form of speech that wastes the time of others, that brings them no benefit. Not only brings them no benefit, it could be divisive or it could be hurtful. So it's really important, as much as we can, at least, to avoid that form of speaking.
There's that same empathy, so the chadang is some goya direbastra, chadang chori shoot, keep it, and it dunzed the timchi toliachi, and it same the cordevina, tea, tanjishivana, so magiva chigas, kanji, so pe kaduna, and it nam samro, nam rabo, kanji, and it same the young jitole, Geshe, di chigas, di chigomaris, that di. And 지금 고야 그 탑조디 and 산지 손들이야 우에는 수피게 and 댐바니 소보 손데 조디 차단 고비게 and 님보레도스라 팀지리야 상당 투바이노 and 차단디 고투그레 마도 지 류비리야 수카마투스데 수칸리야 깨제마시바 쌈기 샘기 차단디
Then we have mental isolation, in which we try to put a stop to anger and attachment, those partial states of mind, having attachment to some and aversion to others, putting a stop to this hustle of the mind, this discursiveness of mind, in which the mind is subject to a great degree of partiality. And when we know that when the mind is busy with anger, attachment, and so forth, the mind becomes unhappy, becomes anxious. It becomes on edge. So those are the things that we want to avoid, right? So don't allow your mind to become that discursive. So we want to put a stop to them through the Buddha's teachings on the 2 truths, the 4 truths, and so forth, which teaches how to develop antidotes to anger, attachment, and so forth. And therefore, if you rely upon those isolations, if you just rely upon physical isolations without taking care of developing mental isolations in which you put a stop to anger, attachment, and so forth, simply relying upon physical isolations will not be enough. It's not going to cut it, because you can stay removed from others. You can stay in complete isolation. It does not mean that mentally you're not subject to anger, attachment, and so forth. Jason?
Yeah, I want to ask a question more about the first isolation, so isolation and physical isolation. If I was a sort of, I guess, caught in a lot of business and looking at others coordinators and that you don't interact with them, that's still effective.
So with respect to physical isolation, if you isolate yourself from others that are very busy, you're living with others.
But you're not interacting with others.
Okay, you're living with others, but you're not interacting with them,
Yeah.
in order to avoid a sense of busyness. Is that still effective? Is that
Can their business be effective?
can?
Can can their business still affect you?
Okay. Can the business still affect you? 다 지단잖아. 지절라 대와 이나로. 소소이 유나 미 어스가로치 유나. 콘솔라 대와 시다 마체바체. 콘솔 카레 지나 체바체. 소소소소 된 딜라 깜존에 대와 마체바체. 콘솔 소소 문에 깜존에 콘솔라 자마 소나양 콘솔 데탄디 첼라 차보치 임베킹기 소소라 누바치 연 세게르베스
용마스. 라. 먼저 지존은 데니, 먼저 지존은 데고 வர다. 그래서 먼저 지존은 데니, 먼저 지존은 데니, 먼저 쳐고 와서 니 삼발라 먼저 지존은 데 아니 지존은 데 비리에 좀 다고게디 미싱 세마이 바 소수 셈 다고게 라 피길에 지 신자 고자 칼랑 거 여바이냐 소수 우에 늦을에 장지 소수 셈 다고게 바이나 수강 쭉쭉 말했어. 그냥 멘타키온 그냥 대바이나야 그냥 콘드로 셈디 콘드 쫑 말했어. 딘디글로기 빼마무시에다스. 다 디메바이나 파션 잠디 대대바이나야 아니 소수 셈디 다고게 마도나 차단기 용해지. 용거다스라.
Not necessarily. The most important thing is to protect your own mind, to guard your own mind. In that, if you take that advice to heart and as much as you can, you train in order to protect your own mind, others will not be able to take that away from you, even at the gunpoint, right? So if, there are accounts of those who did not get angry, did not develop hatred, even when others were pointing guns at them. Whereas if you don't take care of your mind, even if you live in a really easy and relaxed society, even if others are treating you with a sense of ease, still without guarding your mind, you can still be you can still be harmed by different states of mind in a variety of ways.
여러분이 직성한데 단들 패시 인지 게스트가 인사리 아니 베네츠 아니 라겐치 이만감 중하고래요. 정강치된 정강 유름 쇼지래요. 되는 정강 탄다. 야갈 추초도 용이 한 여러분이 한 여러분이다. 한 정강은 강가 총선을 그 뺑인가 참 총선. 쉬다 안다 여러분이 공부다. 근데 세로 치면도 상승 공지 아니 년가 가르 총선 콜리에 깨지기 겐디기 배드 야미라야 콩도 사도 지역이 뺑인가 총선 소수다 루토라야 두고슈 땅이 콘트로 사야겠다. 나중에 당보에 견자 조지 들어서. 아직 샘나는 콘트로 사회는 콘트로 게트 정글스는 야스쇼 쇼를 nem부쇼 소라. 다 드수 일을 거니 아직 콘트로 사야가 년가 빼치무 총소스. 어딘지 쉬도다. 여러분 빼디 다 도인 초그라다. 아니 겐들이 쇼지 투지 뭐 총다.
It's honest that Alama told the story a few times about one of the ex-political prisoners that was released from prison after being a few decades in a prison or a labor camp setting and made his way from Tibet to India. His southern audience, with his honest, it was probably around the 70s or 80s. And when he was telling his accounts in labor camps in prison to his honest and Dalai Lama, he said that there was one situation where he felt a great danger, and his honest was thinking that it was probably he faced life danger. It was about to be executed, or there was something else, and this person told his honest that the danger was that it was about to get angry. It was about to get angry with the Chinese oppressors. So this point kind of Geshe says is really relevant to what we're discussing here, because if you are protecting your mind, if you are guarding your mind, this is what you're trying to prevent from such instances of anger, hatred, and so forth from arising.
그래서 담즈리아 냠는 지용이 원의 냠는 지에서 아직 소주의 롱버터 소주 공버터 소주 개겐다 개두 참참했다 안 소수 정강은 주 and Lutole, Yenta, never down on Tanda Petich Contromasani, and it's Sobokum Yami, and Dindichetugoras, and the same the double Yatuana, Yen Kandaj Chavan, Susu Yamnelia, Pembamato, New Year Samaris.
So if we guard our mind, if we put it into practice, right? So if we practice those instructions of mind training, we can get to the point in which you might lose your country, your monastery might be destroyed, all your teachers and friends around you might be gone, might also be destroyed, and yet you will still be able to practice patience. You will still be able to prevent anger or hatred from arising. This is something that is possible if you take it up in your mental training. So let's leave it here for now. Its virtue might quickly become a Guru Buddha and lead all transmigrated beings without exception to that state. May the precious Supreme Bodhisattva not yet born arise. May that reason not incline but increase more and more. In this manner encircled by snowy mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful to resistance and Yatso, please remain until samsara ends. Migratory beings who make stream clear the path that is unification, friendliness, and compassion. To the lotus holder Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. Our policy of zero is no way, it says in the bountiful thereof, all sustaining, preserving, and spreading unto us victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplishes magnificent praise, honoring the three jewels, protector of myself and others here to suffer. Please live long.
Thank you.
Those verses that you recommended that it's good to write down, is there any particular ones or just the ones that sort of stand out to us, to ourselves?
Della Zikashi Martina, some of the Lola Simkalekabures, Kashi Martina, Nando Kewaina. Didn't not so mixegi sheve, Siche dirve, Yamana Shemba chirve, Yamana Soso Sopemba Karim.
So Karipember, so then G, Sanji Rang Sonsen, so vacation with Dosra. Soso la Kari, Kaukalia, Soso Miseki, Danga the Nimudas, Soso Tachi, and let the mono, but the Zumachi, the any kitchen book, that's Lama Division, kitchen books, and so on there to Zoya, Soso Syndicate, Sema Shawana, Yahweh service.
Well, whatever works for you, whatever, when you encounter teachings and you find that some things are really addressing you, they're really affecting your own mind, those are the things that are good to write down. Not only from this text, but also sometimes when you attend teachings, you find that at a certain point just is striking a chord with you and it's really affecting your mind positively, then this is also something that is good to note down, to keep it with you so that you can continue to let that affect your mind.